Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 8th of December, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So first up today, we have a fresh all-core devs update from Tim Bacco. Now this was the, I think, last all-core devs call for the year. Obviously, we're heading into the holiday period now. There aren't going to be any more calls until the new year. And you can check out his thread or Tim's thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But the meaty bit, the bit that all of you probably are interested in is timelines around Dencun or Dencun updates generally. Now, I put a tweet out myself today saying, Dencun is the next big upgrade coming to Ethereum. It obviously includes EIP 4844, but there's no mainnet date still. But it was just confirmed today that the core developers are indeed targeting January to fork the girly testnet over to Dencun. Now, we obviously already knew this, guys. We already knew that January was kind of like the target here, but it's basically hard confirmed now by Tim Bacco himself, which is, he says in the thread here, which, as I said, I'll link the thread in the YouTube description below. And then, obviously, following along from that, we've got the other testnets to fork still, and then mainnet. And in my tweet, I said that my own estimates put mainnet in March or April. Look, I'm pretty optimistic about March, to be honest, because I don't feel like it needs to be pushed out to April unless there's some issues in the test nets or some bugs that need to be, like some major bugs that need to be squashed or anything like that. I feel like March is a pretty good kind of window right now. Now, in terms of when in March, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I can speculate right now that if we do girly in early January and it goes fine, then we do Holski and Sepolia, you could probably say mid-March or something like that. About mid-March would make sense, just going off the timelines in my head, I guess. And how I expect this to play out. But again, that definitely depends on everything just running smoothly. And then we go to mainnet with it in mid-March, and then it's live, and we get to enjoy the benefits of those upgrades. Now, as I said last week, or I think maybe earlier this week, the core devs are already hard at work on the next upgrade, which is tentatively called Petra. I'm just calling it Petra now, which will hopefully include some really cool EIPs, like increasing the max effective balance per validator so that we can consolidate validators, which is actually going to help with EIP 4844, by the way, or with blobs, I should say, generally, because if we can reduce the networking load on the network, or the P2P load on the network, by consolidating validators down, then we can increase the amount of blobs that we have available to L2s, which obviously gives the L2s more capacity. So if we get Petra, I don't know if it will happen end of next year. Maybe, hopefully it will, but let's say it happens end of next year, and then we see like a pretty big consolidation of validators, and then the network load gets better, then we could potentially see a tweak done to blobs in order to get those blobs, in order to get more blobs, or I should say a tweak done to EIP 4844 in order to get more blobs and get more capacity for L2s. But also on top of that, I mentioned Terrence from Prior Labs put together a post on this called EIP 4844 Plus, which is basically changes and modifications that client teams can actually make in order to bolster EIP 4844 and blob transactions generally without requiring a hard fork on the network, which is always a good thing because requiring a hard fork to do anything takes a long time, as you guys have seen. I mean, by the time Dencun goes live, it'll have been a year since, almost a year, if it goes live in March, since Chapala went live, which was beacon chain withdrawals, right? So it definitely takes quite a while for L1 upgrades to go through, which is not something that we can rely on. So anything that we can do out of network upgrades, out of layer 1 network upgrades, the better it is. And this goes back to, I guess, like Ethereum's way of scaling too. Like, one of the major reasons why we're scaling via the layer 2 centric roadmap, or the rollup centric roadmap, I should say, is because they can move so much faster than layer 1 can. I mean, imagine a layer 2 having to wait 6 to 12 months every time they wanted to do anything. And they wouldn't even be guaranteed to get their changes into the protocol, because you have to basically convince the ecosystem that your change or your EIP is worth including in the protocol. And there have been EIPs that have been accepted but have been pushed back a lot of times, like the EOF EIPs that have been pushed back, and a bunch of others out there. So really, the less that we have to, I guess, like rely on L1 for those sorts of things, the better. And that's not to say L1 won't keep upgrading, but yeah, 6 to 12 months is the kind of time frame for L1 upgrades these days. And we just don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, people expected Dencun. I mean, I expected Dencun in November, right? And now it's potentially, hopefully happening in March here. And that's because we ran into unexpected, I guess, like issues with EIP 4844. But also, we needed to do more testing on it because it's such a major change. And on top of that, there were major changes made last minute, like the one that I mentioned the other week. that required even more changes. So when you take all of that together, yeah, there's a reason why we don't want to do too much on L1. It's just too slow to upgrade the L1, too slow to change things. So we push things out, and we have this kind of subtractive mindset in the Ethereum ecosystem, where essentially we do I guess like you could call it the bare minimum on layer 1, and then push out other things to layer 2. All right, so Tony has an update to his MEV.pics website today. So he said, considering the relevance of timing strategies, I've expanded on the number of validators displayed on MEV.pics. This update aims to enhance our ability to track which validators are engaging in zero-sum timing games and which ones aren't. And you can go check this out, obviously, on the MEV.pics website here. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But you can see the screenshot that Tony has taken here of what this currently looks like. You can see all the validators down the bottom. All the validator services, I should say, down the bottom, and if they're, I guess, like, if they're actually participating in or engaging in these zero-sum timing games and which ones aren't. You know, it's kind of funny to see, like, the amount of stuff that goes into the pipeline of, I guess, like Ethereum block building and Ethereum kind of validating as well, because obviously, this is mostly block building, but then there's the validation concerns too, with around potential censorship via attestations, which we haven't seen yet, but that is obviously a concern. But there's been a lot of kind of cat and mouse games going on when it comes to block building, because we've had the MEV boost thing happen, right? And 95% or plus of blocks have been outsourced to these basically very centralized block builders, which is by design, I guess, at this point in time, because pretty much every network's going to end up like that, where block building centralizes and block verification is decentralized. But then we have that whole pipeline, right? We have the builders, we have the relays, and then we have the validators. And over time, the, I guess, like, level of censorship on all of these things and the level of issues at every stage of this pipeline has either decreased or increased. So as I said, like, it's a cat and mouse game here. And the latest thing is just these timing games, which, as I've said, have been around for a while, has been known for a while, but then you can see which validators are actually, or which validator services, I should say, are actually engaging in this behavior, which is not healthy for the network. And there are various ways that we, going to try to mitigate this and going to try to fix this, but it's like anything when it comes to open systems, like, and open economic systems. If it can be exploited, it will be. And I don't mean exploited by, like, hacked or anything like that, but if there is a way to basically, play a game that's zero sum, but you still make money from it, at least over the short to medium term, a lot of people will play that game, right? And that's just the economic reality here. And I spoke a lot about economic reality yesterday and how behaviors are formed and stuff like that. But we can make changes in protocol and even out of protocol to alleviate a lot of these issues anyway. But you can go check out this new update from Tony. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. Right, a big update from Liquidy today. So they have announced that they're making DeFi front ends great again through something called iapps. So iapps are basically a way to build trustless front ends locally that give you stronger security, more control, lightning fast loading times, and zero front end fees here. So Liquidy actually pioneered this, because when they first launched their app, or their kind of like a DeFi app here, they didn't build their own front end. They encouraged other people to build front ends on top of Liquidy, which people did. And now, obviously, those front ends are, most of them, I think, if not all of them, are currently centralized. But with iapps, they hope that not just Liquidy gets a decentralized front end, but like pretty much every app gets a decentralized front end that can be hosted locally, so that you don't have to rely on these centralized ones. So you can see here what they say. iapps offer regulatory compliant, no central front end, as each user runs their own private front end, eliminating intermediaries. They have better security. The risk of DNS domain or server hijacks are lessened. Lightning fast loading times, update policy, update on your own terms. There's no forced updates. And then they've got like a nice little a comparison picture here comparing the different types of front ends, and then also the TLDR, obviously no third-party hosts, users serve their own private front ends, and DeFi projects continue doing what they normally do. Now, the coolest thing about this is that it is uniquely enabled by blockchains, and it's uniquely enabled by blockchains in a sustainable manner as well, because if you think about it, Web 2 had this for a little while, And by this, I mean that you could build your own front end on top of the Web2's backend. Like you used to be able to build your own Twitter client on top of Twitter's backend, even at one point your own Facebook client on top of Facebook's backend. But then they ended up like shutting all of that down and essentially killing that, so that you were forced into using the Facebook app, the official Facebook app, the official Twitter app, and even with Reddit did it recently, where there is still some limited access, but they killed a lot of the access because they want people to use their official app. Now, of course, the reason they do this is not necessarily for anything nefarious, I guess. It's just for monetization reasons, where they're like, we need people to use our app because then people can get served more ads and we can harvest more data and we can make more money. And I mean, you could argue that that's nefarious, but I mean, like, they're not doing it in order to essentially force you into something where they can control your whole life or anything like that, and they can control what you do with your own money and stuff like that. It's more so just because they want to make as much money as possible. Then enter crypto, where essentially, for example, Uniswap. It's deployed on Ethereum L1. Literally anyone can build a front end for Uniswap and no one can stop you from doing it. It's not like the Uniswap team can go there and say, no, no one can build front ends on top of Uniswap anymore. Everyone has to use the official Uniswap front end. That's not the case at all. Anyone can build it in perpetuity. For as long as Ethereum runs, and for as long as the Ethereum network remains decentralized, which obviously we believe is going to happen for a very long time, if we're taking it to the extreme here, anyone forever can build a front end on top of Uniswap, whether it's a locally hosted one, whether it's a non-locally hosted one where other people can access it. Anyone can do it, and it doesn't have to look anything like Uniswap. It can just basically tap into the Uniswap's liquidity pools. And as I said, no one can stop you from doing that. So it's not like the Web 2 world where you can basically get rug pulled on this stuff, and developers typically did get rug pulled on this stuff. Now you can't be. And the next logical step of that, of all the front ends that have been built, is basically giving users the ability to build their own host and use their own locally, and doing it in an easy, decentralized way as well. So you can go check out this from Liquidy. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Hashflow has released their 2.0 version here. So they've got smart order routing, cross-chain support, including Solana, of course, and you can see more details about this. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But for those of you who don't know, Hashflow is basically a decentralized exchange for trading across different kind of chains, and for basically getting potentially the best price for trading. So you can go to app.hashflow.com to check them out here. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But I'm sure a lot of you have probably used Hashflow before, or at least even tapped into Hashflow's liquidity pools because you may have been using another decentralized exchange aggregator or CowSwap, which could source from Hashflow or anything like that, right? So the cool thing about these aggregators is that they unify the liquidity. And this is what I was going on about the other day. And I mean, I've gone on about this a lot on the refuel before, where the fragmentation of liquidity across the different layers is like a very short-term issue for multiple reasons. The first reason is that you can have apps that build on top of it, such as Matcha, and offer those cross-chain swaps, but with using the bridging infrastructure. But then you can also have liquidity that just simply lives off-chain. Like, there are tons of market makers out there, and I don't mean like literally off-chain, because obviously the assets are still on-chain. But what I mean by this is that a market maker can have these balances across all these different layers, and then they can just run their market making strategies, and they can fill orders with liquidity sourced from basically anywhere. And they do this because essentially they're able to employ complex strategies in order to make it worth their while and make money off of the spread and other ways market makers kind of make money here, and they do it very well. So really, even if we will actually solve proper cross-chain composability, like that to me is not a long-term issue either. But even if we don't properly solve it, the liquidity issue is not a big issue. To me, it's already solved, and more and more teams are building out solutions every single day, and I'm excited for that, because it basically removes a lot of the pain points, not just for cross L2s, but also cross L1s, right? Like, it's always funny to me when people say, you know what the funniest thing for me is that I was thinking about it today. In 2021, if you guys remember, if you were around back then, like, how prominent was the multi-chain thesis back then? And it was a multi-L1 thesis where everyone was saying that, it's not just going to be Ethereum L1, it's going to be all these other L1s. And, this space is bigger than just Ethereum. But these days, you don't hear much of that anymore. What you hear is people saying that, why would you want to have multi-chain when you can just do everything on one layer? So the narrative has kind of shifted, which I feel is very bizarre, because I still think that the multi-chain thing is the way forward. Still think the modular roadmap is going to be the long-term sustainable, majority winner here, where essentially you have all these different chains, L2s, L3s, and a handful of L1s, not too many L1s, definitely, not too many of those, because it just doesn't really make sense. And then all of them are just going to be interconnected, right? And they're all going to be sharing liquidity with each other, and users are going to basically be where they want to be, essentially, and use what they want to use. And a lot of users won't even know what chain they're using on. So then it basically becomes, okay, well, what chains are the most successful ones? It's the ones that are able to build a community. It's the ones that are able to attract developers to continue to build products on there. And it's the one that's able to attract liquidity as well. That's the winning chains. And to me, that's Ethereum and its L2s and maybe one or two other L1s. And people say, oh, well, there's a lot of liquidity locked in Bitcoin. And that's an L1, obviously. I'm like, yeah, but I don't really throw Bitcoin into this mix because it's a bit different, where literally the only way that you can get Bitcoin over to Ethereum or other chains is to go through a very centralized intermediary, by wrapping your Bitcoin. In the future, we should have at least trustless ways to get from one chain to the other. I know that Thorchain exists today, but I mean, Thorchain is, I don't want to kind of like bring on the ire of the Thorchain people right now, because I actually don't have a problem with Thorchain. But the way Thorchain does it is that they do it through crypto economic security. They have like a validator set, and then you're incentivized not to screw with anything. And that's my understanding of it. But I don't know about near future, but at some point in the future, we will have a cryptographic way of doing it, which essentially it becomes fully trustless, and you don't have to rely on economics or anything like that. And then you'll be able to do the proper kind of cross-chain bridging, but not between Bitcoin and other chains, because Bitcoin as a layer one cannot support the primitives needed to be able to do that, whereas other chains potentially can. But that's getting into like probably more longer term stuff here. I don't think it's going to happen in the near term, but the point is that generally I believe that it's going to be a cross-chain thing, but I believe that the majority of the activity is going to happen on Ethereum and L2s and a couple of other L1s out there that manage to gain traction over time. But even those L1s, man, like I still think that eventually those L1s just very much look like an L2, because being an L1 is so inefficient. Like I know that there's been a lot of discussion about this recently not just recently, over the last few months especially, but like to me, if you can do the same thing as an L1, right? If you're if you're trying to do an execution layer at L1, if you can do the same thing as an L1 as you can do as an L2, you may as well just be an L2. And I'm not even talking about a rollup. I'm talking about an L2 that stores its data somewhere else, right? Maybe it's on EigenDA or Celestia or its own data availability layer. Like, that is just so much more efficient than doing it as a layer one. It's so much more effective. So even in that environment, I really do think that the end state is still, the majority of activity happening on these layer twos, and then settling down to a layer one. I mean, it doesn't have to be Ethereum, of course, but obviously I believe Ethereum is the most secure settlement layer right now and into the foreseeable future. But that's how I generally view these things. But this is a long-term thing, guys. This isn't going to happen overnight. I think this is going to take like probably decades to play out, where we actually know and actually see what's the most sustainable thing, because it's easy for me to say whatever I say now, and easy for me to put out my beliefs out there and my opinions on things, but reality is reality. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm spinning narratives when I say these things, but I'm giving opinions on certain things and opinions on how this ecosystem may shake out over the long term, and I could be wrong on those. Like, there's no guarantee that I'm right, but I think that from all the smart people that I've listened to and all the smart people that I've read and kind of done all my own research on this, I really do think that the modular design is the winner still. I haven't really faltered in that. But that's not to say that monolithic designs can't gain market share. Of course they can. But if we're talking about the most long-term sustainable architecture that scales to the world, I think that the modular architecture is the only one that can fulfill that. But as I said, that's a decades-long game, guys. Like, we're not going to scale to the world in the next couple years. Obviously, it's a bull market right now, and we'll probably get a lot of new people coming in, but that's not scaling to the world. A lot of these new people are coming in to try and make a quick buck. They're not really going to use on-chain products besides maybe trading some shit coins here and there, and then they're going to be gone once the bear market hits. I'm talking about full integration into the entire financial system and having crypto rails be the new financial rails, basically. And not just financial, obviously, gaming, social apps, all payments, stuff like that, right? So yeah, anyway, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there. I'm going to leave that one at that. You can check out Hashflow's update. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so I guess this tweet was just speaking to what I was saying before, but I came across this tweet from Sammy where he said the rate at which new ZK/AI coprocessor projects are emerging is crazy. This is the start of the transition to compute being re-centralized, but verification remaining decentralized, and it's going to lead to on-chain apps achieving parity with Web 2 apps. So this is what I've been talking about a lot on the Refuel, and what I was just talking about with regards to essentially when you're looking at where the execution is going to happen, it's all, I mean, not all of it, but like the vast majority of execution of transactions is going to happen off chain. And then we're just going to ZK prove it and post the proof on chain through these co-processors and through the layer twos and obviously ZK rollups and stuff like that. Because by doing that, we can have the execution be completely centralized. Like they literally can, maybe there's only one person doing this, right? Or one entity doing this, and then have the verification remaining decentralized, and you still get I wouldn't say the same, but you get very similar guarantees to what you get with doing execution on chain. But in the trade-off for a little less security and a little less trustlessness, you get vastly more scalability and vastly more efficiency. And in the ideal world, it won't just be one person doing the proving, right? Or one entity doing the proving. It'll be many entities doing it, because it's a one of n trust assumption where essentially only one party needs to be honest. So obviously if there's only one party, then they can be honest, but they can still censor. Censorship is a big issue in this world still. So if you have like hundreds of people doing the proving, potentially, I mean, it doesn't even have to be hundreds, maybe like tens of entities or people doing it, then you have much better guarantees around that there. But yeah, anyway, as I said, like that was a lot of stuff that I just spoke about before, and I'm probably going to run out of time, so I'm just going to power on to the next thing. So there's an update today from OP Labs. So they said in October, we launched the OP Stacks fault-proof system on testnet. Since launch, we've been working on the next testnet release, which will include all remaining features for a fault-proof system that meets the criteria for stage 1 decentralization. So the remaining features will reduce hardware costs of running the off-chain challenge agent, add bonds to the system for incentivizing compatibility, and integrate the fault-proof system into the bridge contracts. So I don't know when mainnet is going to be for this. If they deploy to testnet now and then maybe do more testing. I don't know if there's going to be another testnet after this. Sorry, if they do this new testnet release now, they say this is going to be all the remaining features, but maybe they add something else later on. Who knows, right? But if it is all the remaining features, maybe we could expect mainnet fault proofs on all OP stack chains in end of Q1, maybe, right? Which would line up really nicely with Dencun, by the way. But yeah, this will be a huge unlock for the Optimism ecosystem, because this has been one of the main criticisms of Optimism's ecosystem, is that they don't have fraud proofs or fault proofs at all right now, which means that the chain is very centralized. But obviously, once it goes live, they reach stage 1 decentralization, and they are definitely working towards stage 2, which all L2s are pretty much working towards here as well. But yeah, you can go check out more information about this. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Connext has announced that their Bacco network upgrade has gone live. So, so it hasn't gone live yet. They've announced it today. So Bacco drastically reduces the operational cost of the network and allows Connext to rapidly expand to new chains and L2s. So they say here, Bacco upgrades the existing slow path of the Connext network to operate optimistically, reducing the operational cost of supporting new chains by over 90% while maintaining the best possible security. Bacco achieves this by changing how messages are passed between chains to behave optimistically. Messages are transported between chains by the Connext sequencer, subject to a fault-proof window and disputes by watchers, instead of through the sequences of other rollups. So very cool to see this upgrade go live, and very cool to see such a massive kind of unlock for Connext here, because again, this goes back to what I was saying about cross-chain composability, cross-chain communication, not just of sending funds back and forth, but also generally of message passing as well. And Connext is really at the forefront here of doing these sorts of things. So yeah, you can go read more about Bacco, which the network upgrade is actually set to occur on December 14th. You only have to wait a few days for this to go live. But if you want to read more about this, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, an announcement out of Polygon today. So apparently Flipcart, which is the largest e-commerce and one of the largest payments companies in India, is launching an ecosystem chain using Polygon's chain development kit. And Sandeep says, yeah, this is a game changer for the Web3 ecosystem in India. It not only has the potential to attract the top fintech entrepreneurs in India to build Web3, but it also might encourage many other top enterprise and consumer brands to build their app chains. So this is really cool because I think that obviously Polygon has always been really strong in business development, and there was a bit of a quiet period for a bit there because I think they've refocused their efforts on the actual, technology, and especially on the governance side of things. They've actually done a lot of work on Polygon governance over the past few months, especially. But as the Polygon CDK matures, as a lot of the Polygon technology generally matures, they're continuing to onboard these big partners in order to get them building within the crypto ecosystem. Now, if them building their own chain or not is a right fit, we won't know until they kind of build it out and see and experiment with things. But this is usually how these things happen, right? They team up with an existing team in the ecosystem. They being like maybe a Web 2 company or something like that, teams up with an existing Web 3 company, and then they kind of do a bunch of testing of things, do a bunch of proof of concepts, and see if it works out for them in the end here. So yeah, just a big grab for Polygon here today, continuing their doing what they're known for, which is great business development within the crypto ecosystem. All right, so Blocknative has introduced something today called Ethernow.xyz. It's a transaction explorer that allows you to see what is happening at the core of Ethereum in real time. You can now observe Ethereum's beautifully engineered inner workings. It feels alive and maybe even hypnotic. So if you actually go to this website, you can see a live view of the mempool right now, and you can see exactly what the mempool consists of in terms of ERC20, token transactions, ERC721, which are NFTs, EOAs versus smart contracts, estimated gas needed, all that good stuff there. And then you can actually click into each of these transactions and see what's going on. So as I said, this is like a mempool kind of explorer here. And where you can basically see what's going on per block essentially in the mempool, and basically be able to narrow this down. I mean, you can search for different things here. You can add new filters, etc., etc. I mean, look, you got all the filters here on the right hand side, and basically just explore the mempool. Now, Blocknative are the masters of the mempool. They've been working within the mempool for a very long time now. For those of you who don't know what the mempool is, it's basically the pool transactions go into before they're added into an Ethereum block. And obviously there are different things that are in these pools. Obviously it plays a part with the MEV boost ecosystem as well. So yeah, now you can explore a lot of this stuff using this Ethernow Explorer, which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you guys to check out. All right, Safe has introduced something called the Safe Recovery Hub, which is a new crypto wallet recovery ecosystem launching with Sygnum Bank and CoinCover. So essentially what this is you can see in this diagram, it's a recovery module for your Safe wallet. So essentially you can set up a recovery module where you have a hardware wallet or friends and family or a third party that is able to recover your wallet in case you lose access to it. Now, this is, I guess I would say similar to Ledger's recovery service, but from what I can tell, this is fully trustless and fully self-sovereign, and you have complete control over this. It's not done through some third party unless you want it to be done through some third party. As you can see from the selections here, you can mix and match what you want to do here. Now, I would actually say the gold standard for securing your crypto assets at this stage is having a safe multi-sig with the signers being multiple hardware wallets. And I'm not talking about the same hardware wallet as well. Like, for example, you could have a 3 of 5 multi-sig, and you could have 3 of the signers, or I guess like 5 of there's 5 signers there, but you could have one of the signers be like a Ledger hardware wallet. You can have one of them be a Lattice one. You can have one of them be another different hardware wallet. You can have one of them be your mobile phone wallet, right? So you can set up all of these different signers, like on a 3 or 5 or something like that. And then that becomes the kind of gold standard for securing your funds. And then you go beyond that with this new Safe Recovery Hub, where essentially you add accounts that allow you to, you add ways that allow you to basically recover your account in case you lose access to it for any reason, which is definitely needed for mainstream adoption, guys, and especially for institutional and TradFi adoption, because without ways to recover accounts like this, and without, relatively strong guarantees that you won't lose access to your funds, we're just not going to get to a world where people are comfortable putting large amounts of money on these things. And that's why you see a lot of actual money sitting on centralized exchanges still, because a centralized exchange like Coinbase, as much as like it's not your keys, not your coins, and I strongly believe that, for most people, they're not going to put their coins on a wallet where they probably can't even secure it themselves right now, right? Because a lot of the wallets aren't very good for security still. And for them, they just trust Coinbase to custody their funds more than they trust themselves. And there's not anything wrong with that, because that's how a lot of, I guess, a lot of the way money has worked for a very long time now. Obviously, you put your money in a bank to secure it, right? You're not going to keep lots of cash in your house because it's risky to do that. So, and it's inconvenient too because you can't access the digital financial system without putting your money in a bank. But the beautiful thing about crypto is you have the choice. You can either keep it in Coinbase or some other centralized exchange, or you can self-custody, and you have a world of different options at your disposal for self-custody. You can do it with just one hardware wallet. Obviously, not as secure, but you can do that. Right, you can do it in a hot wallet, very not secure, but you've got that option. Or you can use Safe, a Safe multi-sig, and then in the Safe multi-sig ecosystem, you have a plethora of ways to secure it. I mean, you really aren't. It's kind of like unlimited possibilities what you can do here, which is really, really cool. But yeah, so kudos to Safe for getting this out there today. You can go check out the full details of this. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, just to finish up today's extra long episode, which is funny because it was almost a rug fuel today, guys. Just to just to keep you on your toes there. I was like sitting at my desk and I've had this annoying sinus infection, and you can probably hear it in my voice. And I was like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't know if I can do a refuel today. But I was like, no, I'm gonna power through. It's a Friday. I can't leave these guys hanging till Monday. So yeah, I mean, but I've gone overtime anyway. But I really wanted to talk about this tweet. So I put out this tweet today where I said some things I'm excited for next year in the Ethereum ecosystem. First thing, an ETH ETF possibly being approved. Honestly, guys, I think that there is a really high chance of the ETH ETF being approved. The first deadline, I believe, is in May. Now, that is, I believe, the ARC deadline and one other of the filers' deadlines. And if the BTC ETF is indeed approved by Jan 10th, which is the ARC deadline for that, then it stands to reason that the ETH ETF will be approved in May, which is not very long after the BTC one, which is in probably the heart of the bull market at that point. So things are going to get pretty crazy there. And then you've got Eigenlayer and restaking going on mainnet. I think Eigenlayer and restaking is going to be one of the biggest things over the next couple of years in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm not just saying that because I'm an investor in Eigenlayer. I'm an investor in Eigenlayer because I think it's going to be one of the biggest things. You know, fun fact, there's a lot of deals that I actually pass on because I don't believe in them, guys. Like, I know I invest in a lot of things, but you should see the list of things that I've passed on. It's pretty long because I just don't believe in them. But I know that there are a lot of concerns around restaking, but my thesis is that the only way we're going to see them play out is if they play out on mainnet. But also, I think there's just so many cool use cases unlocked by this, and I just really can't wait to see that go live there. And then obviously we have EIP 4844, which is going to bring layer 2 fees down, which is going to be really cool. L2s just generally becoming more performant. Obviously, the L2s can upgrade themselves to become more performant. And continued user experience improvements across the board, which I think is probably the biggest thing out of this list, to be honest. I think that the user experience, if we improve that and we are able to bring more and more users on chain, then everything else falls into place, basically. Everything else is secondary to that, I believe. Because if we do everything else and the UX and the user experience is still bad, then we really limit the amount of people that can actually use this stuff to just the tech-savvy people still. So we need to improve UX across the board, which is happening. Obviously, every day I'm seeing a new UX improvement come to market, and I expect that to continue into 2024. So yeah, good time to be an Ethereum guys. Good time to be in the Ethereum ecosystem, and I'm bullish as ever on Ethereum. Not just because the price went up over the last 24, 48 hours, just because there's so much happening, and I can't wait to cover it for you guys all of next year as well. But on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks, everyone.